This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week, we're talking with Ebenezer Brewing Company. I am Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim, joining us today, we have Mike Frizzelle, the co-founder and head brewer of Ebenezer Brewing Company. We're going to talk about smoked IPAs, riots about trees, and beers influenced by history. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to dive into it a little bit, but I read the backstory on the brewery. That's pretty interesting. We can't wait to talk about Ebenezer there.
It's weird. Is it weird that I've never heard of this before? I had no idea.
I thought the same thing when I read it. I'm like, this sounds pretty important, but I haven't read it. So we'll throw that suspense out there for everybody.
Yes,
right
indeed.
Yeah, so, Mike, how's everything going for you, man? How's this week been?
Things are good. You know, this is the best time to live in New England. So just, having a good time with the changing of the leaves. And, it's a great time to drink some beer.
This is the time of year in Georgia where it's really a crapshoot what the weather's going to be from day to day. We've had low 40s, low to mid 40s some mornings. We had a few days that didn't break 70. And then I think today we're back in the mid 80s. So it's another one there. So, wear you a short sleeve shirt, but take you a jacket with you.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's the kind of weather where the countdown to winter is coming. So,
right.
People, I think, just appreciate it more. So every time you get a good day, it's just a great day.
It's a great time of the year for patio drinking.
Oh, absolutely.
This is absolutely prime patio drinking time.
I savor this time of year because this is the annual time of the grumbling from Tim.
It is.
Because it's not actually cold yet, but Tim is very obsessed and annoyed at the prospect of it one day becoming cold outside.
I'm kind of known, Mike, my hatred of the winter is so strong that like the first cool snap we have at the end of summer, I get irritated because I'm like, well, now it's going to get cooler. And then the days are going to get shorter. And then it's going to get colder and all of this sucks. So I'm so preoccupied with my hate of winter that I destroy.
He's actually getting a little flushed right now.
I'm getting a little
just
worked
talking
up,
about it.
Getting a little worked up.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I grew up in Southern California, so people ask me, how long have you lived in New England? And I just count the winters. That's how.
That's right. How many? Right.
How many cold, dark seasons?
How many rites of passages have I been?
Yes, exactly. I've made it through this. Brian, how's your week been, man?
It's been pretty good. I've got the day job, and I actually had some time off in between projects, which is wow, this is really nice. Like this not working thing, I like it a lot.
Especially when you know that the next project is right around the corner.
Yeah, that does help. It does help that I know I will not actually be destitute in a few weeks or a month. So it is handy. But so I've continued drinking through my cellar because that's what I do. I had a Monday Night Garage Club number 4 from 2016, which was a Bliss Maple Bourbon Barrel Aged Wee Heavy beer. One of those old, like 750. I think it was actually a wine bottle that had somehow they put a beer cap on top of it. Fantastic.
Okay.
4 years old. Fantastic. Also, a Lagunitas Willetized coffee stout from 2018. Also very tasty.
Also tasty. All right.
Really nice with a cigar, I'm going to point out. I don't remember what I smoked with it, but I think that's made for cigars, so I recommend that. I've had a desire for fish and chips, so I've made my way up north to Cherry Street Halcyon up in, I guess that's Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yeah, the northern Atlanta suburbs up there. Sure.
Between the fish and chips, which is fantastic, and the beer, which is always great from Cherry Street, it's just always worth going up there. So that's my big week.
Okay.
How about you, Tim?
It sounds eventful, man.
Yeah,
it
it's
sounds
good.
Mike, are you a cellar beer guy? Do you cellar beers?
We don't. We've tried it with our Burn the Ships, the smoked IPA, but we're more of the people at the tap room like to watch football and have a good time. So I think just the target market for us doesn't really gravitate toward the cellar beers. So we haven't really pushed it as much.
Are you personally that, or are you a keep cold, drink fresh kind of guy?
Keep cold, drink fresh.
Drink them fresh, right? All right.
Their beers live in the moment. Tim.
I'm a hoarder. Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a hoarder at all. Yeah.
Okay, I call it the Stellar, but it's
I have the 1 year statute of limitations rule in my house. Okay. I'm like, if I haven't touched it in a year, I don't need it.
Interesting. I have some that are 20 years old. So I've got 10, 20 years old and that. So
at a certain point, it becomes valuable. Is it interesting that how few brewers really are hoarders and how many people that aren't in the brewing industry do hoard? I think there's a trend there. There's something going on there. What did you do, Tim?
You know what? Here's something, Brian. I got some fish and chips as well, which was good stuff. Also, I did, and this is so dorky that I was so excited about this. We had a new grocery store open in my town, Brian. So, and it's a chain from Germany that's very popular there called Lidl, Lidl, and they opened one up in my town, and everybody's geeked up about it. And I'm like, you know what? All right, I got to go check this place out. So, and it's one of the places that they kind of make fun of because it's like you can get a block of cheese and a belt sander, at this place. So,
wow, that's got range.
But it does. But anyhow, I picked up some sausages. Prices are great. Food's tasty. I was so geeked up about this new bargain store, but the big news with that, the reason I'm sharing this is they have a store brand of beer, much like Trader Joe's, and that does. And I picked up one. It's called Craft Explorers Oktoberfest Lager. And Brian, it's pretty tasty, man. I mean, it was a $6.99 6-pack of beer. We did a little Googling and found out it's actually brewed by Star Hill up in Virginia. But that was something that I did, check that out. So I'm going to have to check out some of their other beers because I was impressed with the Oktoberfest. Check that out.
I tasted that. Can't complain about it or the price.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff, right? And also something I haven't done in, I bet, years. I went to a cigar shop and had a cigar and drank some beers at a cigar shop, which I haven't done in forever.
Madness.
So that was nice.
That is insane.
Yeah. And then we checked out a new brewery, Brian. We went to Red Top Brew House. Check that out. They're swamped there. They're getting their butts kicked. They were actually out of their own beer. But fortunately, they did have some guest taps on that were real nice. Really cool venue, big open patio and stuff. So we'll be back. They mentioned to us that they upgraded the brew house so they can brew more beer and keep it on the tap there more. So we'll have to keep an eye out, Brian, and see what goes down with that.
For sure. Well, Tim, I think it's time for the beers of the week, which are brought to you by our newest sponsor, The Nest in Kennesaw, Georgia. The Nest features 48 taps and delicious barbecue. They've got plenty of indoor seating and a large patio, so be sure to check them out. They also feature great beer events coming up in October 15th. They'll have a tap takeover with 3 Taverns Craft Brewery, where they will feature 5 awesome beers, including Rap Shizzle, a raspberry Berliner Weiss with lime and sea salt. So we appreciate these guys supporting us. Make sure you check them out and let them know that the Beer Guys
absolutely send the beer guys said about it. Brian, we went there one time and we had a 3-foot-long smoked sausage.
We did.
They called it the longest yard. We had that. And for those that are familiar with like the Belgian beer trays, the circular Belgian beer trays, that's what their large nachos comes in. And you can get them with pulled pork, pulled chicken, or whatever, but it's like a trough of nachos.
You couldn't even capture that longest yard thing on. You needed video for it. You had to have a flyover,
panoramic, something like that. But yeah, good place. Thank you for supporting Beer Guys Radio. Check them out. And as far as our beers of the week, Brian, from Ebenezer, we're actually sipping one right now. Really interesting beer. We have Burn the Ships, which is a cherrywood smoked IPA. We have that. We're going to get into also their Victory nor Defeat Dippa, and one from one of our local boys here from Variant Brewing. We got a little Snake Money New England IPA that we pre-gamed with and enjoyed. So we've got some great stuff going down. Brian, short on time here, but can you give us a little bit of craft beer news?
What's in the news? The Beer Guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
Really quick, I can go over a few things. A lot of people have been wondering about the fate of Dark Lord 2020. There's not going to be a party. Dark Lord is going curbside pickup. You can still get your allocation of 3 bottles. They will be available first come, first serve, October 19th, which is basically you buy a package or 2 at $170 and you get 3 bottles, 1 variant, and you pick your window to come and pick it up. And no parties allowed. You have to stay in your car. So it's
get your beers and get out of here.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We also have Yuengling and Hershey's Chocolate Porter. It's returning due to popular demand. Keep an eye out for that at the end of October.
Look at it. And Brian, I'm going to go with this next one. Y'all look out. Snyder's Pretzels collaborated with Captain Lawrence Brewing with a pretzel keg.
A pretzel keg,
where you got beer on the bottom and a thing of pretzels on the top. So check that out It's going to be a good time for sure. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon with more from Ebenezer Brewing Co.
If you love beer, barbecue, and football, then the Nest in Kennesaw, Georgia is the place to get your fix. Featuring 48 taps, including unique and rare craft beers, wine, and more. Plus some of the best barbecue around. The spacious patio is a great place to catch the games this fall, where you can cheer on your team while you enjoy some wings. And don't forget about the delicious pork and chicken, and my personal favorite, the nachos. Remember, for the best in craft beer and barbecue, make your home at the Nest in Kennesaw, Georgia.
Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo!
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Remember, all episodes are available on demand. So if you missed the broadcast, get the podcast. Beer Guys Radio is available on all popular and unpopular podcasting apps. Now let's get back to Ebenezer Brewing Company.
Mike, we are enjoying one of your beers here right now, a Burn the Ships, which is a cherrywood smoked IPA. I can safely say I've never had a smoked IPA before, but can you tell us about this beer?
Yeah, this one was kind of a interesting experiment. When I first started Ebenezer, me and my business partner, Carl, we were just brewing in his garage, and he had some leftover malts lying around, and one of them was a cherrywood smoked malt. And he came up with the idea. He was like, well, I've never had a smoked IPA before. And so we started messing around with the grain bill. And the first one was like so bad, we ended up just pouring it down the drain. We didn't even bother bottling it just because the aroma of it, we're like, we put way too much smoked malt. And we did about 8 or 9 different iterations, and each time cutting the smoke portion of it in half. And we eventually got to the sweet spot of where it is now. And it's only about 3% of the grist. But we thought, we wanted something where it added a unique dimension to it, but it didn't overpower it. Like we didn't want a Rauch beer or something like that. So it's a little bit heavier in caramel malt that people would say to use for especially like modern day IPAs. So it's about 18% crystal. And then we also use Northern Brewer and Cascade. So it has a lot of traditional components to it. So it's a more traditional tasting IPA. And then we add in the smoke factor to it to add a little more dimension to it.
Now, to throw in here, and I'll let you tell the story to back this up, but there's a quote on this beer can.
Yes, says, there is.
We shall go home in Persian ships.
Yeah, so me and my business partner, we're both former Army officers. That's how we know each other. I'm from the West Coast, and he's from Maryland originally. And when he got out, he got a job in a biotech company in Boston, and he liked New Hampshire, so he bought a house up there. And when I got out, I went to grad school, and I really got into the beer scene in San Diego. And I was looking for a foot in the door for a biotech company. So I reached out to my old buddy from the Army, and he was like, yeah, I'm actually thinking about starting a craft brewery, which is what, I was definitely into. I just couldn't find the right people to do it with. And we ultimately decided that New Hampshire, because of the self-distribution laws there, it would be the best place to set up shop. And so we kind of joked that when, I left my job and I moved across the country, I was burning my ship, which is a military tactic of when you land on the beach, you burn your ship so your men can't go home. It's basically, it's a all or nothing. So you get the most motivation out of your people if, success is your only way out of the dilemma you're in, basically.
when retreat is not an option, all you can do is go forward, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's happened numerous times in history. I feel like we probably came up with the name by watching Hunt for Red October. I think Sean Connery in there talks about Cortez, but we kind of gravitate to the Alexander the Great story. And so we put it on all the cans, but it was just something that spoke to us. And we like to have some sort of message of something that inspires us. And I think everyone in their life kind of has their own burn the ship story. So lots of times people like start their own business or they do their own,
Sure.
whatever it is, and they reference it. And it's just one of those universal things that I think speaks to everyone.
I think that sounds like a story that would make like a great Monty Python type sketch or something like that. Like,
oh yeah,
definitely.
The sailors land on the beach and they get out and the commander's like, burn the ships. Are like, whoa, what's this?
Hang on.
This?
So, hang on, they're made of steel. They don't burn very well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Burn them.
Exactly.
So, we teased earlier in the show. We were talking about kind of the name Abel Ebenezer and where that comes from. We read the story and it's interesting and something I'd never heard of. So to kind of keep a history flow there, can you tell us about Abel Ebenezer?
Yeah, so the able part is just an adjective. So in the 1700s, there was this person from New Hampshire. He was a wealthy mill owner named Ebenezer Mudgett. And at that time, England had passed a law called the Pine Tree Law for the colonies, saying that any pine tree over 12 inches in diameter was property of the King of England. So on our logo, you see at the base of the tree, there's a little arrow. That was the King's broad arrow mark. So surveyors would go around, hatchet these trees, and if a tree was marked as property of the king, you were no longer allowed to use it to cut it down, build your home, heat a fire, anything like that. It was property of the king. And so Ebenezer Mudgett was caught with hundreds of these trees that were clearly marked for the king to build the navy. And instead of paying his fine, he basically got a bunch of guys together over a beer at the tavern that night and convinced them that this law was, and they should do something about it. So they ended up raiding the inn that the sheriff and his deputies that came to enforce the law were staying at, beat them up, and as the story goes, makes them wish they never heard of pine trees. And
I'm getting my trees.
Yeah, but actually, if you look at Revolutionary War flags flown by all the militias and groups during the Revolution against the British, they all have pine trees on them because that was the most oppressive thing that England did to the colonies.
How about that? See, and I never heard that.
How did I not hear that?
I know about the tea and the harbor thing.
Exactly.
And all that
well,
stuff,
the reason for that is everyone that lived in New Hampshire at the time, they were loggers. They cut down trees, and all the historians and scholars lived in Boston. So you hear about the Tea Party, but you don't hear about the Pine Tree Riot, which happened 2 years earlier. And it basically was the first act of civil disobedience that was done by the citizens, but then upheld by the courts in New Hampshire. When they were caught, they were let go with a slap on the wrist.
Crazy.
So all these other uprisings, they were like, well, these guys in the backwoods of New Hampshire keep getting away with it. Like, why can't we? And everyone progressively got bolder. And it's funny, that story was taught to us because when we were both Army officers, like I said, we were training for a counterinsurgency, and they were like, all right, the war in the Middle East is a counterinsurgency. Let's start with America's first, so you really, have a grasp of how it was done. And basically the moral of the story was these little things that happen in the backwood towns that you don't think about have a lasting impact and can evolve into something bigger, like the American Revolution.
Sure. And like you said, at the time, it was very important to be where the people reporting it were, to be in Boston or whatever. Now with cell phones and all that, it's a little easier for us to get information around. But I wonder how many little stories like that there are around the country, Brian, that we know nothing about.
This has gotten surprisingly deep for a conversation about beer. Beer names.
Man. We're American history now.
Yeah, don't feel bad. Actually, the governor of New Hampshire came to give the brewery a little send-off when we first opened, and she had never heard of the story either.
See? There you go.
I don't feel bad now at all.
We feel better. We appreciate that.
So I have to ask, how much of the brewery, the tap room, or the tap handles that you feature on your website, are they all made from white pine, or is most of it, or any portion of it?
They are. They're all made. Actually, the farmer that we give our spent grain to is an arborist on the side, and he has his own wood shop, and he makes the tap handles for us. So we give him spent grain, and he gives us blank tap handles, and then we brand them in the back of the brewery.
But they're only allowed to make them from trees under 12 inches.
They should text Prince Charles every time they do it. It's like, FYI, we're using
still using those trees.
Still
using those trees, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. So you had mentioned, Mike, going from California to New Hampshire. How was that transition for you?
It's been tough. The winters are definitely trying. So I've learned to, I don't count how long I've been out there based on the years. I just do it by the winters. So
that's it. That sounds like the best way. I'd mentioned earlier, I don't remember if it was on the air or off the air at this time, but living in upstate New York, and we were sandwiched between the Finger Lakes and the Great Lakes. So we just got hammered, with the lake effect snow there. And at the time I was a teenager.
Yeah, that's got to be the worst place to
go out. Yeah. We're out there. We would go skiing, skating, hockey and all of that. So it wasn't too bad. But as I've gotten older, it's a hard pass, man. It's a hard pass on that kind of weather. So, well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, but we'll be back very soon with more from Ebenezer Brewing. We love good beer, and Athletic Brewing makes non-alcoholic beer that stands shoulder to shoulder with their boozy brethren. With a fraction of the calories and certified organic, it's a great beer to enjoy anytime.
Athletic's got new brews like Cerveza Atletica just in time for summer. Check out the full selection at athleticbrewing.com. Use code BG25 for 25% off your first order, and U.S. customers get free nationwide shipping. Athletic Brewing, brew without compromise.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, WVMT 620 AM and 96.3 FM in Burlington, Vermont. Catch Beer Guys Radio on WVMT every Saturday at 1 p.m. local time. Now let's get back to Ebenezer.
Mike, I want to talk to you about New Hampshire's beer scene overall. But before that, I made an observation here. We just poured your another one of your beers, Victory Nor Defeat, your double IPA.
Yep.
And I noticed it's pretty clear. And it made me think we got 2 IPAs from the brewery in New England, and neither one of them were
They're
hazy.
Not hazy.
There was no lactose in them. Or do you do any hazy Northeast IPAs?
We do. We have one called Glory Not the Prey. It's a fan favorite at the brewery. It's very popular. And then we actually do a New England rotating series where we're always changing up the hops, or we might change up the yeast a little bit. And that one, the next one out is going to be Ingenuity number 10. So just having a good time with that. But, being a California guy, I was definitely of the breed that if your beer was cloudy, it was bad. So
sure.
Going into it, these are our 2 flagship beers from the earlier days, but people still like them. And something about Victory Nor Defeat that I think people, if they're just basing their judgment of the beer off the way it looks, it looks clear, but it has a water profile of a New England IPA. So it's going to have more of a rounded, softer feel to it.
That it has. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Right.
Is that a rarity these days in New Hampshire? A beer that's this clear, that's an IPA?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything is cloudy now. Yep.
Okay, everything is cloudy
for the most part.
That's a beer
all the
name.
skies are
That's
gray.
A beer name. Everything is cloudy now.
That's right.
That's a beer name right there, man.
It's winter in New England, right? Yeah.
Yes,
right.
yeah. It's fun to look around geographically. the U.S. has its own beer styles that are, of course, I mean, everybody knows the Northeast IPA and that, but that kind of has permeated the whole country. But there was a fellow that moved to the Atlanta area from California, and he come and he's like, man, you guys have got a lot of sour beers here, a lot of like kettle sours and that.
That's right.
And that's something we do have a really good supply of Berliners, Gozes, fruited Berliners, the milkshake styles and all that. So,
and for a while we had our own interesting hybrid version of like West Coast and New England IPAs, where they were kind of clear but they were kind of juicy. And
that was just because of our brewers not knowing what they were doing. That's like with any trend. When the trend first hit here, people had to figure it out. And that's the same thing happened when brewed IPA started, Brian.
That's true. Yes,
the first few brewed IPAs that we got here in Georgia didn't really fit the profile of a brewed IPA.
Super effervescent West Coast IPAs. Yeah. Not quite nailing it.
Absolutely. But Mike,
you guys down there, you guys have Mitch Steele now, right?
We do have Mitch Steele here. We sure do.
Yeah. New Realm. So I mean, he knows what he's doing. He's kind of the godfather of IPAs there a little bit. Yeah. So.
We actually, his Oktoberfest won our Oktoberfest blind tasting. We had, what was it, 11, Brian, that we blind tasted?
Yes.
I think. And New Realm's Oktoberfest Cup, the Bavarian
Prince. Fantastic. Yeah.
And they just either they just released or they are soon their Mexican stout, the Oaxaca Chaka. And that's just fantastic.
That was delightful. And yes, I was also excited to see that coming back.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So it'll be good. That'll be fun to get
He knows his way around some hops too.
He does. He knows a thing or two. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I was on a beer forum and someone was kind of talking trash about Pliny the Elder. And I was like, no, that was what got me into beer. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, how can you guys do that? But, it's the clear beers. They're, it's not what it used to be.
Well, I saw someone talking on a forum. I don't remember the beer. I really wish I did, but it was like an IPA that came out like 3 years ago. And they said something to the effect of, it's like, well, we've got to go back and look at the beers that paved the way for IPAs like Tropicalia or something like that. I'm like, man, they've missed a couple of decades.
Seriously.
Here. But you think about it, a 21-year-old, whatever he's drinking, to him, that is, but they skip the Sierra Nevadas and they skip the Plinies. We had Mike just the other day. Nathan brought in a Pliny for President. It's the DDH version of Pliny. Is that right?
Oh, nice. I haven't had that one. Man,
it's so good.
So great.
You know what? When we drank it, it reminded me again, Pliny is just a fantastic classic IPA. It's just such a, no matter what anybody wants to say about it on the internet, it's a great example of the style and what it did in its time was and is still amazing.
It seems like madness that you would even have to protect or defend Pliny right now.
Just blow it off. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's funny because I went to college up in Sonoma County, and we used to go to Russian River Brewery because we thought the pizza was good. And this is before social media and Facebook and with the ranking of all the best breweries where it's like, we just like the food and the beer's good and it's high in ABV and it gets us, messed up. So we're happy. We're just college students.
Good pizza, good beer, man.
I love that story. I went to Russian River for the pizza.
Fantastic. Yeah, right. Now you try to go back there, you need like reservations to sit at the bar. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I guess this secret's out.
See, that's like the beer nerds version of the people that say, "Oh, I read Playboy for the articles."
Or the articles.
I'm here for the pizza. I'm here for the
pizza. All due respect, I think the pizza was better than the beer back in the day. But.
Right? Yeah. Well, Mike, talking about these geographical differences, and that you're in New Hampshire now, and I did a little research, and I saw that statewide, New Hampshire has over 90 breweries now, and the best I could see, the population is just over 1.3 million. And heck, here in the Atlanta metro, we've got like 6 million people, and statewide 10 million in Georgia. And we've got, I think, about 110, 120 breweries here statewide right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's doubled just in 5 years. So with 90 breweries in that small of an area and with 1 million people, does it feel crowded there yet?
It's starting to a little bit. Most of the breweries that open up aren't that big. I've noticed in New England, especially in New Hampshire, it's very town-centric. So the town is going to have its brewery and, people, if you ask them like, oh, where in New Hampshire you're from, they're going to give the very specific town that they're from. So it's like this hyper local thing going on. So I'm not sure how it is in Georgia, but it's interesting that you guys brought up that point because one of the reasons why my business partner and I decided to start a brewery in New Hampshire was because of how unsaturated it was. We were actually the 19th brewery in New Hampshire. And when I left San Diego at the time, there was 150 breweries in San Diego alone. But like you said, it's relative to the population. So now New Hampshire is becoming one of the most densely populated, breweries per capita regions in the whole country, which is crazy to think about. So absolutely exploded.
So, we see a lot of collaboration here in Georgia, but we don't have quite the volume of breweries per
density
person.
there,
the
right?
density, the density. Do you see as much of a collaborative spirit? Do you have a lot of people working together there in New Hampshire?
Not a ton, but it is something that we started to do this year, especially after COVID with, some places struggling, or, maybe it's just more of a we're all in this together mentality. So we actually started a new collaboration beer brand called Team of Rivals. So it'd be like Team of Rivals with X Brewery. And our first one, we did it with a meadery. And so we incorporated honey into the beer, and it was a huge hit. It was awesome.
Honey into a beer. That's, collaborating with a meadery. Are you even rivals at that point, or like you're just kind of adjacent?
You're a team of rivals.
We
covered this. We covered this.
All right. Sorry.
So,
I'm slow in the uptake. I'm just catching up here. So.
It's a little bit. It was actually kind of a playoff of especially what's happening politically, because the Team of Rivals is a book about Lincoln, in the times of the Civil War, about, he brought in the best people for the job, even though they were technically rivals of his. So we thought that was just kind of a fun play on the times, and we're obviously all competing for the same thing, shelf space.
Yeah.
So
if I remember correctly, Lincoln and Washington took their axes and went to New Hampshire and helped their buddy Ebenezer take down some trees.
That's right.
That he had
something like that. Yeah,
I think
that sounds about right.
They could not tell a lie about
accurate.
chopping down those trees.
And the ships that they took to get there, when they got out of them,
they burned them.
Oh
yeah,
with the bald eagle overhead.
That's right, just flying around there.
That's right.
It's funny. There's actually a movie out called, I think it's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yes, there is
something like that. Just total craziness there.
That's right. We're in that. No, I'm just kidding.
See, absolute lunacy, man. Good stuff. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're off the rails here, but we're going to be back very soon with more from Ebenezer Brewing.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I believe you have my stapler.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now let's get back to Ebenezer Brewing Company.
Mike, we want to talk to you some about something that's kind of interesting. We love talking about the beer laws, what you can and can't do from state to state. We know it varies everywhere. We had a little bit of a victory, I'll say, here in Georgia. The silver lining of the pandemic, our retailers are going to be able to do home delivery. They'll be able to do now, unfortunately, breweries. And Mike, the way it's licensed here, our breweries and brew pubs are licensed differently. Brew pubs fall under retailers, so they will be able to deliver. Breweries will not. So baby steps. But anyhow, the laws like there, you mentioned you self-distribute. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we do self-distribute, and it's one of those things that the first couple of years we only did keg beer, and so we were kind of fighting over tap handle space. And then in the last 3 years we started canning, and that's been great, getting on shelf space and in stores. But since COVID happened, actually an interesting thing that happened was we're able now to sell directly to the end consumer at their home. So before COVID, we weren't allowed to sell, to someone's doorstep. But since we already had the delivery vehicles in place, we kind of had the apps we needed and the way to track where beer was going already. So we essentially just changed the addresses from beer stores to homes, and we're able to pivot pretty quickly during the whole COVID shutdown.
So how much differently would things have gone for you? Because you distribute 100% yourself. If you had to go through a distributor, could you have done what you have done?
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. And it's tough because I feel like you're always playing the distributor's game. So before, when we're going to restaurants, you're always competing for that tap handle space. You're always competing for the shelf space. You're never getting the good spot on the shelf. You're either really high or you're really low because you don't have any of that buying power. But with the end consumer, they know us, in some respects, they know us personally. And so people, I think, feel comfortable coming to us and knowing that, we'll just show up to your house and give you some beer. So it's an awesome product delivery. But, honestly, if you're talking about a distributor, like they can't touch that. So
how far does your home delivery go? Do you go to Atlanta?
Yeah, right.
I'll place an order, man. We'll place an order.
Can you make a special exception
That's
for
right,
us?
For us, right? Bring it to the house, man. Bring it. I'll make you a sandwich. I'll hook you up.
That's right. Possibly some sauerkraut too.
Yeah, it's it's something talking about the self distribution and that, and we even have some weird laws like we have where you can do direct sales now, and we've just started having certain breweries that have more than one location. But there's some odd laws, and I don't know all the details, so I won't try and chop into it. But with transferring beer from one brewery to another, even under the same ownership, and so it limits the abilities of what these breweries can do because of the transfer laws. So it's just something, and we saw when we passed the law here in Georgia to allow own premise sales, we had a boom of breweries. I mean, it was really good for the industry. And we do have a few that are just doing the own variant that we talked about, the Snake Money, that was one of our beers.
Yes.
They send very limited kegs out to some special accounts in that, restaurants or bars and that. But packaged in that, you can only get it at the brewery, and that served them extremely well there. And they were ones that through the pandemic, something that was good for them was they had a very loyal local customer base that kept going and getting beer from them. So it was pretty cool stuff.
I will say, like, as far as number wise, during the shutdown, it obviously hit us or hit everyone really hard in April and May. May was the largest volume distribution, or actually the largest volume production and distribution we've ever had.
See, crazy stuff.
So, small sample size, but I mean, there it is. It's the best month we've ever had. So.
I was going to ask because I've heard similar things. Like it's up and down depending on the brewery to brewery, but some have had a phenomenally good like curbside and delivery type of situations where it outperforms what normal sales would be because of the situation. People can't go to a bar and have it, so they're hitting up the brewery directly. So it sounds like it's oddly actually kind of beneficial for you guys at this point.
It's definitely a nice fallback, especially, we're going back into the winter time. We're not sure, with outdoor seating with restaurants, especially in New England with the winters, how is that going to impact that? Our restaurant's going to shut down again, things like that. So it's nice to know that people are willing and comfortable to go directly to the brewery and get something delivered to their house. And, we offer, if you order by 5 p.m., you're going to get beer that day. And that's an awesome service. Like, I would love to have that. I actually live in Massachusetts, and it's like, I can't even get that. So, it's nice to offer something that I would want.
Like, that's interesting that you're talking about, people coming and getting from the brewery and that. We're seeing that here. As a matter of fact, people pulled out quite a bit buying gift cards and things. And I saw you actually had someone buy a pretty large gift card, right?
Yeah, we had a customer come in because they knew we were short on cans. I mean, that's probably what it is. But they came in and bought a $2,000 gift card right off the bat. And they're like, go buy your cans.
See?
Wow.
And you're set now and they're set in the future then. That works out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you always think you're doing something nice in the community, but when someone does that and they're putting their money where their mouth is, you're just like,
right.
It's a huge vote of confidence. And it's a good kind of pressure of, I got to keep going and I can't, feel sorry for myself for too long. I got to get back to work. So
burn the ships and go, right?
That's right.
Burn the ships and go. Absolutely. So
I think dude was trying to buy a lifetime subscription to your beer, unofficially.
There we go. I mean, hey, whatever you want to do.
But it is an industry, Mike, where people get connected. They feel an attachment. They feel part of a brewery. And I think that's one of the awesome things about it. Your neighborhood brewery, it's not just, I don't have any connection to McDonald's. I don't have any connection to, the Publix grocery store on the corner and that. But my brewers, sure, man, I feel that way.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone wants their third place. Everyone wants to feel like they're part of something, so it's just part of it. So
yeah.
Absolutely. I'm always told I'm third place. So,
third place,
I
Brian.
feel natural
you're
everywhere.
Very good with all of that, right?
Yeah, I'm so good with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even tell you how many groups of friends we've made or like jobs that have been, created just from the customer base at the tap room. It's insane.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done a ton of networking through beer for, the day job and other things that I've done. It's a powerful network. You can get a lot of stuff accomplished there. So talking about the beers and that, an interesting article actually came out in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, our paper today, written by, Bob Townsend, good friend of ours. But he was mentioning that he talked to a lot of the brewers in Georgia and the core beers. People are returning to the cores, man. Maybe that's what it is. Everybody's loved their hazies and their one-offs and all that, but core beers. And, we talked about it just a little bit earlier, Mike, but you mentioned you've got kind of an experimental one-off project called the Ingenuity Project, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Going back to the New England IPAs, that's definitely a trend that we're seeing. And it's fun for us because I want to say our business model is very core oriented. We only have 12 beer brands, and 2 of those are changing brands, including the Ingenuity. So it's one of those things that it keeps it exciting for the customer coming in because they're like, all right, it's the same brand. We know what kind of style we're going to get, but the taste is going to be different. And then for the people that work at the brewery, it's just more exciting to be able to come to work and try out different types of hops and just have a good time with it, which is why we got into beer in the first place.
So I'm curious about that series. I saw that it was all New England style IPAs, the hazies, if you will. And are there a lot of adjuncts in play? Is it purely just changes in hops, or do you kind of mix in some other stuff in there? Are there like milkshake, chocolate, coffee, banana cognac New England IPAs, or is it just New England IPAs?
I mean, now there will be, now that you said that, but
there you go. Boom.
Yeah, right.
Please
we've done one with
deliver
lactose.
to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, we've tried different yeast strains because obviously you guys know that yeast can change the flavor of a beer as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
And so it's been fun for us, and even the techniques of dry hopping at certain times or, different procedures like that, it's given us a flexibility because when you come out with a core brand, restaurants and people want that to be the same all the time. But if something is going to be changing, it's kind of nice to be able to experiment with something. And that's the exciting feature. And the change isn't going to be something that's detrimental. People are looking forward to that as opposed to, oh, this one tastes a little bit different than the last time I had it.
Right. Yeah. That's we've got a brewery here, Wild Leaf, that does what they call their Alpha Abstraction series.
Sure.
And what are they on? They're on 9 or 10 now or something.
Oh, they're on like 12 or 13. So is it 14
I
now?
can't keep up with these numbers, Mike. There's just too many.
But they've done Sabro. What was the one that had the bourbon barrel? Like an oak and bourbon?
It was an
and
HBC
vanilla?
hop,
yeah.
but I forget which one it was.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
So, if people want to keep up with what's happening with Able Ebenezer, where should they go?
You just go to ableebenezer.com. And you'll learn about beer. You'll learn about American history. All our beer brands have a story behind it. So, yeah, that's really the best place to go. ableebenezer.com. Yep.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Join us next week as we talk to another one of our local breweries, Brian. We're going to have Steady Hand Beer Company on here. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.